Hey everybody, it's Mr. D here, and we're going to be now going over a quick review and example of a VLookup table. And we're going to use VLookup in the same data from the previous filtering example to look up an item and return the data it was checked out, the data it was checked back in, and if it has not been returned yet, we're going to display a status that says not yet returned. And I've already set up a little box for you here where to fill the items in and the formulas. This will be where you key the item number. This is where we'll do a VLookup formula for the checkout date. We'll do a VLookup formula for the check-in date. And if it has not been returned, we're going to display the words not yet returned. All right, so we need to do a VLookup here. VLookup is the formula. We can check on the function argument box, bring it up. And we have three things we need to worry about, and we're going to actually do a fourth one in this case. So first we want to look up the value. The value we're looking up is this number. We're typing in this number to find in the table. The next thing we want to do is our table array, which is where our table is, all the data in our table. We're going to select our table. This says what is the column we want to return. So if the item number is column 1, camera type is column 2, or product type is column 2, equipment detail is column 3. Here's what we want, the checkout date, which is column 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to return whatever value is in column 4. It's going to look up this value, going to go down the list to find it, go across to column 4 and return it. And then we want to say that we need an exact match. An exact match meaning we want to find that exact ID number and return data only for that. So we have to put a 0 in here to make an exact match, and it tells you that down here. A 0 is the same as a false. So we can click OK. And there's our formula. Now it tells us we have an error because we don't have an item to look up yet, but that's okay. We'll test this in just a minute. Now we have the checked in date. VLookup. Let's use the function argument box. We're going to look up this item in the same table. We could have named that range if we would have wanted to. We could have named this data table and just typed in that range. Probably would have been a smart thing to do. In this case, the checked in date is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, we want to return the exact value, so we put a 0. So let's test this. I didn't give you an ID to look up, so let's look up the first one on the list, ID number 3000. It returned back, oh, what is this? It's returned back numbers, not dates. Well, if we look over here, this is formatted as dates. So we need to format these numbers. Remember, dates are just a series of numbers. This is the 42,136 days since January 1st, 1900. We're just going to format these as dates. Short date, format as short date. So this shows that item 3000 was checked out on the 12th of May, which is correct, and returned on the 15th of May. No problem. And that VLookup was a very simple function. But what if we have one like item 4900 that hasn't been returned? You see it's got a bad date here. We need something to flag us on that. And I don't want to get too technical here, but we're going to do an if statement here. This is a number. Don't forget, this is a number. And if there's no number there, it's going to return a 0. So we want to say in our condition, if, and we can bring up the function dialog box if you want, if this one equals 0, what's our value of true? If it hasn't been returned, we want to put in the words not yet returned. And I guess we could go ahead and put item has been returned. Let's just do those two options. Click OK. So now it tells us that item 4900, which is here, had a checkout date of October 4th, but there is no return date, and we have a little memo that says, "Oop, that item has not yet been returned." But if we choose one that has, item 3000 for example, item has been returned. All right, so that's a very simple VLookup that also we throw an if statement in there to alert us that maybe something has or hasn't been returned, since we have that option. And that's as simple as it gets in terms of a VLookup. One value, go over 3 or 4 columns. Key things on this that will mess you up: make sure you add the 0 on the end, which makes that a false statement. A false statement means that you want the exact match. So for example, if you typed in a number that doesn't exist, let's say 3001, if you didn't have false in here, it would try to return the best value it could. Let me just show you that. If we didn't have false in this statement, it's going to find the number closest to 3001 and return a value. But there is no 3001, but it gave us a value. So if you want it to be exact, you've got to put that false command on the very end. All right, that will be an example of how you would do a VLookup and return a value, and throwing in a little bit of an adder there with a conditional statement to be dynamic to change if the item has not been returned.